So, welcome to today's podcast. I have the pleasure of speaking with Cheryl Procter-Rogers. Cheryl is an MCC coach, a public speaker, an author, as well as a PR consultant. Cheryl, it's great to have you on the call with us today.
I am so excited to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem at all. So, I remember when we had a bit of a catch up before this call, we sort of started exploring your journey to becoming a coach. And it would be great if you could share a little bit of that, because if I remember rightly, coaching kind of came out of what you were doing as opposed to that was the thing you were doing.
Absolutely. So when I began my public relations career back in the 80s, I was doing a great deal of work around community relations, public affairs. And as you can imagine, I would have to get the support of senior leadership within the organization where I was working. It was an insurance company in Los Angeles in the US. And you cannot implement a public relations or business strategy without coaching the executives. Of course, at the time, I didn't know it was coaching. I just thought I was asking the right questions that would inform the work that I was doing. And just quite, I wouldn't say by accident, but intentionally, my parents every night at the dinner table would always pepper us with questions. And I just remember my father always saying, if you're in a situation and you don't know the answers, ask a great question. And so I came to public relations with that notion that asking great questions was a gateway to real, true understanding, less rework, right?
Yeah.
And also to understand the motivations of the executive. So quite naturally over the years, you are what you practice. I'm practicing this notion of checking in often, asking great questions for clarity, certainly selfishly, to make sure that I was on the right track with the programs that I was implementing. And so over the years, I found that in many relationships, even when I started my firm, the executives came to trust me, and we would collaborate on the different policies or programs moving forward. And so when I learned that there was actually a profession, called coaching, I didn't think much of it because I was pretty comfortable in the space of public relations.
And so what was it that then caught your eye about this thing called coaching? Because evidently you were already coaching. You're doing that deep listening. You were asking those great and powerful questions. You were getting clarity. All those things that we talk about in coaching, building those great relationships. What was the turn point where you sort of went, oh, okay, I might actually step into this profession called coaching?
So I would say probably about 15 years ago, Robert, I started getting requests for a meeting. And so I would do all that preparation to prepare for the meeting. I'm looking at their reputation online. I'm looking at any news placements to see, what kind of image and what kind of stories that they're telling. I'm looking at their website to see what business they're in and how they are conducting business. So I would come to the meeting armed with that information, right? Ready to talk about either public relations or business strategy and how I can help And time after time, I would get the response, no, Cheryl, no, no, no. I know you're a PR business. I get all that, but I just want you to help me think through the strategy that I'm creating and how I can present it. And I want to show up as a leader. And I want to use you as a sounding board and get some clarity around that. They weren't saying coaching.
Mm. But they,
And so as you can imagine, I'm thinking, how does this work? You know, just having a conversation without the trappings of an assignment to create a strategy.
so they were already identifying the coach in you. They weren't calling you a coach, but they knew what they needed from you. And it was like they pulled you into the industry.
Absolutely. And so I think the final straw for me was when I was at an event and a senior executive, it was a Groupon event, the company, and one of the senior executives, I talked to him for, I know, 5 minutes at the most. And the next day, I got a call from him, and he says, well, my wife suggested that I should call you because I need a leadership coach. And she said she believed that you would be a great leadership coach. So, of course, I'm thinking back, like, what did I say? You know, because my business card does not say coach. And I didn't present myself as a coach, but obviously I had unintentionally. And I did ask when we did have that meeting, and he said, what you did was you asked some really great questions. And then you identified that I was not really sure what I wanted to do next. And had I thought about what was next, and I thought, yeah, that's me. That's being curious and nosy. And then that's when I started to do the research, because I was hearing more about executive coaching, leadership coaching, and I wasn't really educated enough to actually have a conversation with anyone about a framework or structure. I could probably have come up with something, but the learner in me would not allow that. So I was doing some research on the coaching industry. And as I was looking at the definitions, I did realize quite quickly that this was a young emerging profession.
Mm.
And that's probably why I didn't really hear about it 30 years before, but that it was all a buzz now. And not only in the US, but around the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And that did intrigue me. And then I wanted to gain some training. And the opportunities were endless. So what I decided was I was going to identify an organization within the whole industry of coaching that was really helping to define standards of practice, had a code of ethics,
Yeah.
was absolutely providing some credential that could set me apart from others, since they're such a low entry investment. You know, you can buy 500 business cards and put coach on there, and you know, I'm a coach, right?
And that can be a bit of a challenge within the industry, because not everybody's trained or has the skill to do the work, but they're all calling themselves coaches.
And Robert, remember, I was part of public relations emerging 40 years
Hmm.
ago into a true profession beyond media relations and publicity. So I had been there already. So I knew the value of aligning with an organization that would help steer me by the fact that they were accrediting the training programs. I could at least start there.
Hmm.
And so that's how I came to understand the value of training. I had the organization in the International Coaching Federation to help guide me there. Um, I was a little taken aback at first that I couldn't join unless I had at least 30 hours of coach training and was on course to have 30 more because it's 60 training hours. But as I really thought about it, I was like, yes, this is what I'm going to need to bring credibility to me as a professional. And definitely, I want to be trained in what is now a true profession. And I was a little nervous, I must tell you, Robert, um, when I first started the training program, because, I had started saying that I was a coach. I'm an executive coach, I'm a leadership coach. And I wanted to know immediately, had I been lying to the public? And so I was relieved when I found that 80% of what I had been doing was really on par with the standards of the coaching practice. And I'll just tell you, I have my parents to thank for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those dinner times with all of those questions, that curiosity really set you up to have that mindset of a coach.
Yes, absolutely.
And you said there, this thing that became a true profession. What would make you say that it's a true profession?
When it has standards, when there's a body of knowledge, when there's enough research to support um, the standards of the practice, and also when there's a code of ethics, and when my litmus test is when universities start providing either, they usually start first with certifications.
Hmm.
You can, at this university, you can get a certificate in public relations. Um, but I believe that soon we're going to see universities offering 4-year degrees
Hmm.
in different forms of coaching. And I would imagine that executive or leadership coaching may lead the way.
Yeah, and you've already got sort of universities accrediting or joining with coaching organizations. So we're on our way for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited because it's such a great time to be a part of this profession, not only as it serves the coach to be able to really support the client with their own knowledge and expertise, but for the nation, for the world. Because when you think of all of the issues that we're facing in our society, um, all of the advances around the world that are really being fueled by technology and this whole um, uh, digital advancements, and the requirement for us to have not only a global mindset, but a digital mindset as well. And then all of the social justice issues. And, these are the things that coaching is well positioned
Hmm.
to help to change the discourse in such a way that people are empowered and they are able to tap into their emotions, their values. Um, I listened briefly to your podcast um, um, with Andrew Macklin, I
Yeah,
believe it
yeah,
was. And that podcast struck me. And he was talking about domestic violence. And when he was giving the statistics in the UK, I just cringed. I said, gosh, I believe it's like 1 in 4 women
mm,
or 1 in 10 men are in their lifetime is going to experience some form of domestic violence. And with COVID,
yeah.
because for many, especially women and children, home is not always a safe place.
Yeah, yeah, and we've seen such a rise in the challenges that people are facing in their home, and because they're not able to get out of that space and they're trapped in those spaces, those issues have been tenfold.
Absolutely. And, when he was talking about, well, how do we're creating that safe space for just 1 hour. And how do we identify or uncover, if you will, a client or a coachee that is experiencing domestic violence? And it hit me like a bolt, Robert, because I don't know that I've ever had that. Just wasn't on my radar.
Mm,
Do I have an understanding of domestic violence? Of course I do. Um, and of course, once it's uncovered, then our role as a coach, of course, is to refer um, to have that person get some help. But here again is a role for coaching
yeah,
to give that individual a safe place to talk about something that is rarely talked about, and to be able to direct that person towards safety and then healing. And, when you think about the possibilities across all of the ills and the opportunities that we face in the world, wow, I mean, coaching is like just so exciting.
it's great to see you so passionate about the work and about coaching.
Well, I know coaching works. And, you know, we could argue how to, about approaches, but the science is in, Robert. Coaching works. And the return on investment of time, sweat equity of, digging deeper into your values and beliefs to help propel you forward. I like to propel people forward, accelerate
Mm.
their awareness and insights. It's just a great time for this profession that's emerging and growing so quickly.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have done here at Animas is we've set up our social impact arm. So we're looking at, what is going on in the world, and how can we, with our band of coaches, as it were, support people, causes, ideas, and how can we come together and be part of that? And our first one that we've just launched is called Creating Space, and it's working with teachers with an aim to how do we support young people in education at this time. And it's like, well, we've got to start with the teachers because they're doing the work. They're at the coal face of this, as it were. So we've just started one of those projects.
Robert, that is a brilliant example of the power of coaching. And kudos to you and your organization for having the insight to look at the trends. I still feel in some regard I'm a passive coach in that I am, accepting what is brought to me and hopefully giving my clients a path forward that gets them closer to their goals. But what you're doing is significant in that you're identifying what's needed in the world. And you have the organization and the structure to do that. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, and I think thank you to my team, to Nick, the founder of Animas, for sort of having the vision to go, let's make something that does that. And then we have Emma Kobayashi, who is the head of social impact, who's actually forging it forward and making some great changes. And I say changes, I don't know if I mean changes, but she's making a great impact in the world with the work that we're doing. So really exciting there. And there was something you said there about, you hope, no, you said you were passive. And it kind of made me want to challenge that, because I know that you do a lot of pro bono work, and the kind of work that you do in the spaces that you do it, I wouldn't necessarily describe that as passive.
Well, I could consider that. And I'll give it more thought, Robert. How I see the difference is you are really looking at what's needed in the world and creating some structure around that to be able to support, for instance, teachers. Whereas I am more passive in that I'm not taking that broader view. I haven't put a stake in the ground and said, I want to coach teachers, or I want to coach individuals who are victims of domestic violence. It is true that I am a community builder and that I do give back to the community. It's not something I think a lot about, because every month I have a certain amount of hours I'm going to devote to my volunteer work. And I'm committed to those hours as if they were billable hours. I don't see them as different. It's just that they're in that category. And I'm doing some volunteer work. I've signed up to coach a veteran, and it's part of an organization. Oh my gosh. And every time I'm thinking about your organization, and I'm thinking about this organization called Stand Beside Them. That's the name of the organization. And it really is focused on veterans. And, when the call came out, I went, yes, I know I have a little experience coaching those in the military, but it's not my niche. But what I am learning has been so significant just from the package, which I'm sure that you will, that you provide to your pool of coaches. It just educates us on, what is it, the different issues that veterans face. And just learning that just sparked my curiosity and informed how I would coach, an individual for 12 sessions. So I say passive in that I'm not putting, a stake in the ground and saying, this is my niche. These are the individuals. I'm going to proactively go there. I'm passive in that when things come across my desk and I think that I can be of service, then I'll raise my hand and say yes to that. I have said yes to working with an organization that is scaling coaching that pays pennies. But what I had heard was that they had very few people of color and particularly African American women in their pool. So I said, yes, I'll do it for a while because I would want someone to do that for me.
So this was something that I was going to touch on. I remember in our earlier conversation where you were talking about, doing work pro bono or pennies work, as it were, in organizations, and those organizations or the other Black women within those organizations going, you're here. Yes. And we see you and you see us, and that shared experience and that understanding of what it's like to be in an organization and to not see yourself in that space and not be supported in that space. And I remember thinking, that's great work that you're doing, but you might not necessarily recognize that great work.
Well, I don't know that it is so much great work as it is me understanding, just having empathy, understanding how I felt when I was maybe the only person of color and the only woman in different scenarios, and not having someone I could talk to. And I believe that I'm the coach, or I'm trying to be the coach that I wish I had. And I say yes to spaces that I probably should say no to, because I believe that it is really important. I believe coaching works. And I do believe that there are some cultural nuances that, only an African American woman can know, experience. And so that's going to inform the questions that I ask, because I have that level of understanding that someone who doesn't have that background and experience would have. And then there's also just the visual appreciation for being on that Zoom call with a sister that gets me. And if I can contribute to that in some way and help that person untangle or get unstuck and continue on their journey within that organization or even somewhere else, I'm happy to do it. I do have to make a living, so I do that, but I will take on those roles because I feel like it is a part of my calling and my responsibility, not only as a coach, but just as a human.
And I really like that idea that this is part of your calling. So it's not just about you, it's about something bigger, something beyond you.
Totally. And I feel really blessed and fortunate that coaching found me and said, okay, you've been with us all along. You haven't been calling it coaching. You've been calling it, well, I'm your thought partner,
And I guess, in coaching, that's kind of what we are. We are their thought partner. It is a partnership. And we are exploring thinking. I mean, yes, there is emotion and beliefs and all the other stuff that sits in there as well. But I guess, especially in that executive space, we're going, come on, let's explore your thinking here
Yes.
and check it out, shake it up, move it forward.
Yes. And, many years I have been coined a trusted advisor. And that's what we are as coaches. So, Robert, I've been I've been training for coaching for my entire career. Um, so it was a seamless transition to add coaching um, to my consulting practice. I started my firm in 1986, a step ahead public relations. And so it was very easy to, after I got my MBA, um, and then it was about I think about 13 or 14 years, I realized that my MBA was a little dusty. So I went back to school and got um, another master's in leadership and change management. And what all of that does is it just builds on our capability and my capacity to to be a better coach and to help leaders. Um, and I have clients that are not African American women, um, but it's I could say so much about it and I won't. But it's just the right time. It's the right time for me. It's the right time for um, the profession. And I just feel so blessed to be a part of of a profession and organizations that are doing so much for humanity.
I hear you, talk about your, your MBA being a bit dusty, so you go back. I also know that you're an MCC, one of only, I think it's 1,200 in the world. So you have that real desire to push yourself as well.
Oh, absolutely. Um, Again, it's the learner in me. And I also, in Gallup's Strengths Finder, I'm also an achiever in my top 5. So there's no secret there that I will always want to learn more and achieve more. And so I definitely noted that there were 3 credentials for the ICF. And so I always start with the end in mind. So I said, okay, so what do I need to be an MCC? Where some may look and say, okay, what do I need to be an ACC? Let me get there first. I'm always looking ahead. And I think, for many years I played chess. So I'm always several steps ahead, right? And so I looked and I said, wow, I probably am almost there. So I did earn my PCC first. And on the first attempt to get the MCC, the testing, the hours, I had all of the requirements, and there's the requirement to submit 2 recordings.
Hmm.
And so I failed on both recordings. And I said, wow, this is a great learning opportunity. Okay, let's see what I'm doing. And what I realized was that because it was a recording, I wasn't staying true to my coaching. Is that crazy? But I lost myself in the process and was so like, okay, I have to be perfect and of course, what the heck is perfect? don't we challenge our clients when they come up with this perfect stuff? We're like, okay, define that. What's the evidence that anyone is perfect? But here I was not practicing what I preached and sent 2 recordings that didn't adequately capture my coaching approach and or nor my style.
Hmm.
And so I went back to the drawing board and thought deeply about um, what was the feedback that I was given. Oh my gosh, I love feedback because, it's just without feedback, we don't know where to go or how to grow, right? Um,
And that's such the growth mindset in you that often when you get feedback, I know I can find it really challenging, and I have to really sit with it and go, I know this is good, but sometimes it's difficult to hold, and that you have this desire, give me the feedback.
yes. Oh my gosh, because I'm going to be better. I'm going to be able to be in service to my clients a lot better. And it really is going to help me in my marriage, with my children, with my girlfriends, and with my family. So it's when we're learning, I believe, when we're learning anything, that whatever that new learning is, it translates through to all parts of your life if you seek it out and notice the correlation and take that. So yes, the first time, and so I was so excited that when I submitted the the recordings again, and I felt really good about those recordings, Robert. And I sent them in, and the feedback was tremendous. And what that told me was the training um, was important, and that the training that I got really was making me a masterful coach. And that I also must stay true to myself and trust my own instincts. And so that lesson of getting the MCC, yes, trust me, I so appreciate being in that small group of credentialed coaches. But I don't think for one moment that there are non-credentialed coaches that are doing amazing work. It's just a mark of distinction that I have chosen to achieve. And because of the work in the area of advancing the profession of coaching, it is a mark of distinction that is being recognized. And I will say, after I got the PCC, I started getting a great deal of attention and work and requests um, for coaching and for writing, because now I had been writing so much in the PR space and business strategy space, and so now, oh, okay, now you can write in for the coaching space. So it's just, I guess you can hear the excitement that I have about this. But I truly believe that when we start looking at credentials, yes, I'm proud of the work that I did to achieve that credential. And it does distinguish me in some way from others. And I like to believe that it distinguishes me only from the people who didn't take the test, or who didn't go through the process. And that there are so many uh, um, coaches that are changing lives and making a significant difference. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's so lovely to hear that idea of you chose that path and you went, right, that's what I'm going to do. But at the same time, recognize that others may not choose that path. It doesn't mean they're not as good. It means they've just chosen a different way to look at it. But this is what's important for you.
Yes. And, I always say that just having a plan is so important. And my daughters would cringe because, I was always saying to them, the only thing worse than a bad plan is no plan. And so, and plans are like diets. They all work. You just have to find the one that works for you and stick with it. Right?
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm sure that can be woven into a coaching metaphor somewhere. Okay. So Cheryl, this, it's just lovely speaking with you, and we could speak forever, and I'm sure we'll invite you back to have some more conversations with us. I'm just wondering what lays ahead next for you. So what's part of this plan? Can you divulge any of the plan that you have next?
Well, one of the things that I'd like to do, and I'm in the final stages of writing a memoir that really outlines what I believe are the 4 most important aspects of one's life to have a plan for. Okay. I'm one of those people, you just heard me say it. I believe you should have a plan. The plan can change. 40 years ago, when I was entering the field of public relations, coaching wasn't on my radar. I didn't feel or think that I would do anything else because it so suited my personality, and it just checked all the boxes. Mm. But having the plan helped me to be prepared to segue seamlessly into coaching. And so in this memoir, I'm really talking about the value of having a personal cabinet. I say it's the 4 C's. I should have said that first. Having a personal cabinet, always focused on your capabilities, having a career plan, and the connection to a larger community, and how you give back to that community.
And I'm sure people listening to that will have real resonance, because for some of it, I sort of go, I think about my career, I go, I never had a career plan. I never had one of those. Things just kind of stumbled my way. And I said, I guess my career plan was to say yes. Whatever stumbles my way, say yes and see what happens. That was kind of my career plan. But I do really recognize that part about, a connection to a wider community, because that's always been part of what I do. It's always been about, say, what's the community in this and who benefits from this and how can I be part of that?
Absolutely. And I believe that those 4 collide to create a very satisfying life. The other day, my daughter asked me, she says, so are you excited about tomorrow? And I said, I'm excited every day. I said, I can't remember ever waking up and not being excited about the day ahead. And I don't know why that is, Robert, but it is. And as long as I'm learning and growing, and I have control over that. So as long as I'm learning and growing, I can control that. So then that means I can be happy every day.
Yeah. And I think that's a real key there, isn't it? There are things that you can control, and you're striving to push those, to improve upon those, and they bring you joy so you can be happy.
Yes. And so I guess we're almost stating the serenity prayer. I have it somewhere. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I should know it by heart. I've read it so often, but the serenity prayer about, um, you accept the things that you can't change, you change the things you can, and then have the wisdom to know the difference. That is, I know I don't have it right, but that's basically
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
concepts of the serenity prayer. And I believe if we live our lives that way, we'll have much joy. I mean, will there be dark days? Yes, but even in those darkest days, you're always seeing the light.
Hmm. Yeah, that feels like such a beautiful place to close our conversation. Cheryl, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. If you could just share with us, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place for them to go?
Oh, wow. So they could, I have a website, a stepAheadPR.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Cheryl Procter-Rogers. I don't hide and call myself something else. Um, or they could email me at Cheryl, CHERYL, at a stepaheadpr.com.
Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cheryl. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Robert. I have enjoyed it quite a bit.